Hi, my name is Catherine, if you're new here, and I'm here to talk about... No, that's not my intro. Not that I really have a set one, but this is just what I've been saying, so I guess it's kind of my intro. Hi, my name is Catherine, and I'm here to talk about books. First of all, if you're new here, welcome. If you have just subscribed, great work, great job. You're very smart. And I'm here to talk about a very specific book tag today. It's called the A to Z book tag. Apparently book tags were out, now they're coming back in. What do I know about trends? I know nothing. I think these are really fun. I think it's just a fun way to kind of talk about book opinions and talk about things that aren't necessarily like the books you're reading, but just gives you more information about me as a reader and how I feel about these certain things. So to give credit where credit is due, I first saw this book tag with the user called The Moody Reader. I clicked on her video and watched it and was like, oh, this is really fun. I really like it. And she had some really funny, great opinions about each of these things. I believe the tag creator is Another Bibliophile Reads, excuse me. So basically this A to Z book tag, we have literally A through Z, different book things, bookish things for each letter of the alphabet, and I'm just gonna go through and give my opinion, because everybody wants to know my opinion on audiobooks. Let's get started. If I was very fancy, I would have like my little mic, because that feels a little bit more like we're gonna dish. We have little mics, I just haven't learned how to use them yet. I'm kind of an old lady, so we're just gonna use my nice little mic here and get it started. I feel like I should have coffee though, like I should have like tea, and I'm like sipping because I'm about to say some controversial things. I'm not. Basically, we're gonna go through A through Z. Each letter of the alphabet stands for something that's kind of bookish. For example, A is for audiobooks, B is for Bildungsroman, as we go on. And I'm going to say if it's hot or not. Are audiobooks hot or are they not? And I'll kind of elaborate on why I think they're hot or not. So that's the main premise of this. Anyway, let's move on. A is for audiobooks. I think audiobooks are hot. I was very resistant to audiobooks for a while. I didn't like them because I really do learn better and absorb more if I read things on a page. However, if you are really busy and you just want something on in the background, or you are doing multiple things at once and you just want to get a story in, I think audiobooks are great. I think they're an awesome thing. They're also great accessibility-wise for those who can't read print on the page. I think they're fantastic because then they can still get the story through audio. I think they're hot. I think they're hot. They're great. I read them, or I listen to them, I should say, and I have been enjoying them. They're still not my preferred mode of reading. I really do prefer a print book, but I do like them. Bildungsroman, if I'm saying this correctly, Bildungsroman is specifically a story about coming of age. It doesn't have to be necessarily like from childhood to adult, it's just someone's maturing or coming of age. I think these are hot. I love these types of books. I think because they really just show like people learning things, and we all want to read about someone who's discovering something for the first time or learning something for the first time, and we like reading about people's kind of maturing journeys. When I think about these books, I think of like Atonement by Ian McGowan, I think of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith, and some books that I really, really have loved over the years have been these types of books, so I gotta say, they're hot. They're hot. C, children's books. Hot. Which sounds odd in the context, because they're children's books, but these are hot. These are a hot commodity. A well-written children's book is for anybody. If it's a classic, if it's just exceedingly well-written, it's for everybody. Charlotte's Web? I'll pick up Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web is so well-written and such a great story. They're usually stories that teach us such great things and do it in such an accessible way that they're really meant for everybody. And some of our most beloved characters, our most beloved stories are from children's books. So I'm like, they're hot. D, digital. This might get me some hate. I don't think it's hot. Look, I'm on a computer all day. I basically work in an email factory. I basically am emailing all day. So I'm constantly reading things digitally. And at the end of the day, when I'm off work, I don't really want to read a digital copy of something. I really am that kind of old school, like I need a physical book. I know many people have gone to digital, many people have gotten the Kindle, and they're like, it has changed my life, and I am like, go for that, that's amazing. Just for me, I can't do it. I know it's clunky to carry around the big book, but I am still gonna do it. I don't really like reading digital books, unfortunately, so not hot. But if you want to keep reading digital books, by all means. These are all just my own personal opinions. E, experimental. That is hot. We love an experimental novel. This account really stands Moby Dick, which was a very experimental 19th century novel in which Herman Melville was like, I'll try it. We'll see if this works. It's kind of weird, but we're going to try it. And that is progress. That is how we get these amazing books. It's always someone who's trying to push the limits and who are really expanding the bounds of what we know a novel to be or a memoir to be. And even if it doesn't even make fully cogent sense, I'm still like, they still tried it. They still had the guts to say, let me push it and let me do it. And that will always be, I will always laud that on this channel because that's how we get anywhere. Otherwise we'd still be writing middle-aged morality plays and we don't need those. We're good on those. Experiment! Experimenting is hot. F is for fantasy. It can be hot, but more often than not, I don't find it hot. Sometimes it can be hot, but more often than not, it's not. For me. I was a fantasy person when I was younger. Ella Enchanted, I think I read that book like 10 times. I was so obsessed with it. I loved The Hobbit. I loved these book series called The Sisters Grimm, which were very much fantasy. But as I got older, I just dropped off with it. I was not as into fantasy anymore. I don't know why that is, just my tastes changed, and I can't say I'm super drawn to fantasy as an adult, so I don't find it super hot. However, books can change my mind. I am about to read a very, very famous fantasy series, sci-fi fantasy series coming up, which you'll see what that is, and I'm reading it because it's a classic, and my snooty butt is like, well, because it's a classic, it's fine. But I have a feeling I will enjoy it. So there are ones that do change my mind, but on the whole, I don't find fantasy hot. That's just my take. G is for graphic novel. Hot. Very, very hot. I love graphic novels. I think they're great. I think the fact it combines a medium of a really great story and not always maybe like the best writing, but sometimes yes, like very great writing, very great stories that are combined with graphics and with cartoons. I think it's fantastic. It's just a great way for the story to just further embed itself in your mind because it is not only like written out visual, but also just pictorial visual. So that combined just makes it like a very unique story in the mind. And some of the best stories are in graphic novel forms. This is a form that I've only recently gotten into since leaving college, but I am fully invested now. I am in the graphic novel world, so they are hot. H is for horror. Hot like the burning flames of hell. Horror is hot. I love horror novels. I recently have only really been getting into them because I've loved horror movies. I've really only recently been getting into them as novels, Stephen King being the obvious gateway drug there, but now I'm starting to branch out and read other authors and other types of genres, and I'm just really liking what I'm reading, so recommend horror. Get on that. I is inspirational. This is hard to say if it's hot or not, because I don't want to be like, it's not, and just be a total Debbie Downer, but I can say that a lot of the stuff I've read is very inspirational. I am reading a book right now that I'm finishing up that is very inspirational, and it's not corny. Like, it's incredibly genuine, and it's really uplifting in ways I didn't think it would be. So I'm like, that's hot. Like, that's great. But then books that are like, maybe putting on that they're inspirational, if they're touting in the description that it's going to be inspirational, I find that kind of a turnoff just because I'm like, you might be trying too hard. This is a hard one for me to gauge. I'm leaning towards not hot just because those are books that I don't go for inspirational, but it's lukewarm. That one's lukewarm. Journalism is for J. Journalism's hot. Journalism's hot. Journalism, I can find sometimes to be a little dry. It has to be told kind of narratively. But when it is done narratively, it's very hot. I like it a lot. As someone who loves nonfiction, I find it to be very, very interesting, as long as it is done well. Because sometimes, again, it can be a little dry, and depending on the type of journalism, it can be very skeezy to me. A little like, you know, like prying into people's lives or doing exposés or doing, I've always found that to be a little bit skeezy, but if it's well-researched, well-written, tastefully done, we do love journalism. And we do love journalism for exposing truths and for holding certain people in certain structures accountable. That is what I find to be a good facet of journalism. So it's hot. I find journalism to be hot. Kitsch. So this is anything that kind of embodies popular sentiment or appeal. When I was looking this up because I was kind of like, what is kitsch? And I looked up that technically the Bridges of Madison County is kitsch, and I went, oh, not hot, because I hated that book. That's a video for another time where I talk about my least favorite videos, but I hated the Bridges of Madison County. It was so lame. So I was like, if that's kitsch, then I don't like it, then it's not hot. Anything that has to do with with popular sentiment at the time. If Colleen Hoover falls into that, the things I've read of Colleen Hoover I'm not a fan of. I don't think her writing is very strong. Then I gotta say it's not. When it comes to kitsch art or like kitschy things, I'm into it. A Velvet Elvis painting, that is kitsch. That we like. In books, I don't think I like it as much. If the whole thing is to catch popular sentiment at that time or to be very writing to be for the sake of popularity, that's not really, it's just not my thing. So I'm probably gonna lean towards that it's not hot. Libraries. Hot! L is for libraries. Yes, very hot. Take advantage of your local library, please. Download your Libby app, go visit the library, just go hang out at the library, use it for the computer, the printer, go talk to the librarians, use your local library, please, for the love of God. The fact we even have a community place with free services and free books, just with signing up with a card, that nowadays it would never be established. We are in such an over-commercialized spot now where we would try to find a way, if we were establishing some kind of library, we would try to find a way to make money from it. So it's this grandfathered system of free knowledge and free resources and a free community space. Go to your local library, please. Support your local library, go to their book sales, go do everything you can for them. They are hot libraries. Yes, that's my little rant on libraries. M is for mystery. This one's lukewarm for me. I might have to think aloud to see if it's hot or not. I don't pick up mystery novels that often. Again, this seemed to be something that I was really into when I was a little kid. I liked books that were like, you solve the mystery now, and I'd be like, yeah. But I at the store, when there's a mystery section, I look through it, but nothing really catches my eye or looks that interesting. They all seem like they lean a little bit more pulpy, which I don't mean that as an insult, but it just seems like it's the literary aspect of it might be a little bit lost. I am not a huge fan. I'm probably gonna say it's not. However, if mystery is worked into a book that I'm reading, or there's a classic that's a mystery, or just one that is exceedingly well written, I'm not going to turn my nose at it and be like, I don't read mysteries. I don't necessarily turn my nose up at any genre. I just don't, I'm attracted to some and not attracted to others, and this one I'm just not super into, so I'm gonna say it's not. But again, my mind can be changed. If you have any good mystery recommendation books, very well written, very good mystery books, please leave them down below, because I'm always open. I'll try new things. N is for nonfiction. Hot, 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 hot. Love nonfiction books. Unfortunately, nonfiction, I think it's a really bad rap because people instantly think of the dustiest, driest book about World War II they could possibly think of, and they're like, oof, nonfiction. But nonfiction is such a broad spectrum. There's so many things that fall under this umbrella that I'm like, you can't not. It's got memoirs and biographies, it's got history, it's got special interest topics, and this is a whole video I am planning to do on book recommendations on nonfiction and just how to view nonfiction so it seems a little bit more accessible. So, it's hot. Omnibus. Forgot to look up what that means. Give me a second. Oh, okay. An omnibus edition, or omnibus, is a book containing multiple creative works by the same, or more rarely, different authors. Commonly, 2 or more of the works have been previously published as books, but a collection of shorter works or shorter works collected with one previous book may also be known as an omnibus. Omnibus editions help consolidate longer series into fewer books. The prices are usually equal or less than the price of buying each individual edition separately. Okay, yes, I know what this is now. Oh, hot. I think that's hot. If you're a big collector of books or you really love this one author and you want them all in one edition, I say go for it. My edition of Uzumaki by Junji Ito, I think that's technically an omnibus because it has all 3 of the series in one book. So I think that's hot. It turns into a bigger book, but then you can read all of them at once. If you want, you have them all in one place. And yeah, it's definitely less expensive to buy that one big book than buying the 3 separate volumes. I also have an edition that's 3 separate novels of Edith Wharton in one edition, and I love Edith Wharton, so I love having that almost as a display book, and a spot where I know I have House of Mirth, Custom of the Country, and I believe it's Age of Innocence, all in one spot. I think that's great. Omnibus. Hell yeah, love it. Let's do it. P is for poetry. Poetry is hot. I'm gonna say it. Poetry is hot. I have always been a little bit uncomfortable with poetry, and this is something I spoke about, I think, in my March wrap-up when I read Ocean Vuong's poetry. I used to have to read so much of it for high school, and we had to really analyze it, and so I would get really in my head about it and be like, oh, I hate poetry because we gotta dissect it, and what is it? But it technically can mean anything. Like, I would get so mad about it. But as an adult, I am not tested on it. I can just enjoy poetry and read it almost just as a full book and have it be its own thing. So now I really enjoy it and I really like it. And I'm finding that there are poets that I'm drawn to more than others. I love Mary Oliver's poems. I really liked Ocean Vuong's poems. I still have a soft spot for Langston Hughes and for E.E. Cummings and Edna St. Vincent Millay. Those are poets that I loved when I was younger. I was turned away from it for a while, and now I'm back into it. I really enjoy it. So, poetry's hot. Quests. So any book that has kind of a physical or spiritual quest. These I feel like often will fall into sci-fi, fantasy, especially like a spiritual quest. But I think these are hot. I think these are good stories because they do show man overcoming themselves when they're trying to overcome some kind of burden or trying to reach a different spot from one part of the book to the next. And that always makes, I think, for a good story. The Odyssey is technically a quest, even though I don't like the Odyssey. Moby Dick, I guess, could be seen as technically kind of a physical and spiritual quest. The Lord of the Rings series, the Hobbit series is very quest-like. So there are very, like, I think I do jive with this. It's just not something I necessarily think to look for. Not like, I'm ready, this month I really want to read a quest book. I find those just kind of come to me. I'm drawn to it. I'll say it's hot. Romance. Romance. I feel like such a hypocrite with this topic because when it comes to like books written in 19th century romance, I'm like, Jane Eyre, I'm like, let's go, let's get it. Anything by Jane Austen, technically romance, and I'm like, let's go, let's get it. But contemporary romance, not hot. I don't like it. I have read excerpts, I've read reviews, I've read the backs of books. I've really been like trying to stay open to maybe picking up like an Emily Henry book, maybe a Colleen Hoover book, like something. But I just find I'm just not drawn to them. I'm just not interested in contemporary romance. Mostly because I read the backs or I learn what they're about and I'm like, they're all kind of the same thing over and over again. Which then you could turn around and be like, Catherine, all 19th century books are like some woman who has to get married and doesn't want to get married and is doing something that's out of the ordinary. I'm like, yes, it does follow similar. I will admit to you, yes, that follows very similar formulas. However, I'm more attracted to going to those formulas over and over and over again, whereas the formulas that are so seen in contemporary romance, they just don't interest me. They don't call to me. So if you are into romance, absolutely, do not read romance. It's just me, I'm not drawn to it. So I'm gonna say on the whole, romance can be hot, but for the most part for me, reading-wise, romance is not hot for me. Science fiction. Science fiction is hot. Of all the very, like, specific genres, like if we're doing big umbrella, like romance, fantasy, mystery, sci-fi, I would say of those, I'm more drawn to sci-fi. Like I've always been kind of interested in like the Philip K. Dick, Ray Bradbury. I've never read Ursula Le Guin, but she's very interesting to me. Octavia Butler. Like I am more drawn towards those folks and those kind of worlds than I am for fantasy or mystery or those other categories. I just find them interesting. It's usually posing questions about our world now, but exploding it into a different time period. The different technologies, the different societies, I find to be very fascinating. When I was younger, I was like into dystopian. Dystopian I see as kind of a branch of science fiction. So I've always been interested in it. I would say science fiction's hot. I feel like I should just be Paris Hilton in this whole video. Like, that's hot. Translation. Books translated from one language to another. T for translation. Yeah, hot. So hot. Why only read books written in English? I mean, that limits us to English-speaking countries, so I can only read books from Canada, from the US, from England, Ireland. Like, come on, like, that would really limit me. That is a lot of what I read. I've read a lot of American classics, lots of British classics. I've recently been reading a lot of Canadian literature, but that would limit me from all these other amazing writers I've read. All of the Japanese novels that I love that have been beautifully, I think, translated from Japanese to the US. Anything written in Spanish, like I wouldn't be able to have read anything by Gabriel Garcia Marquez because that was always written in Spanish first. There's so many books that would have just been closed off to me. So I gotta say, it's hot. It's hot because I get to read all these books from all these other countries. And if you find that you are only reading books from English-speaking countries, if you're very comfortable in your American zone, just pick up like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel, which was written in Mexico, written in Spanish. Just pick that one up and just see. Just branch out a little bit and just see what happens. Ooh. Ooh is for you, Übermensch. So anything that involves like supermen or characters that can seemingly do anything, that they're these like, almost like a Superman comic, the Übermensch. Yeah, unfortunately when Übermensch is mentioned, because I'm a big true crime geek, I only think of Leopold and Loeb, which is a very famous Chicago murder case in which Übermensch was brought up a lot. These two men who murdered thought they were Übermensch, which is hilarious. They weren't. So every time I hear that, I think of those two dummies. So I can't say that I'm ever really drawn to books about Übermensch or about supermen or about super characters with super abilities. I'm gonna say it's not super hot, at least for me. It's not something that I'm really drawn to or I think is really revolutionary. So I don't know. V is for Victorian. So in this tag, they're saying that's the period from 1837 to 1901. Hot! Hot. I love a Victorian novel. I unabashedly love them. I will defend them. Love Victorian. I know that is not for everybody. I know people are not Victorian fans. I know people think they're outdated or have outdated customs. Absolutely. And the customs and the opinions, obviously, are outdated. But I just find them to be so, like, that time period was so fascinating because there was so much happening and so much going on. And just what writers were doing. Especially, I don't know what was in the water over in Ireland and England, but they were drinking something over there that made them all just fantastic writers and really pushing the bounds of what a novel could be, because the novel was still somewhat new. Like, it was still a new thing. So just the fact that they were really pushing the boundaries and writing about all these things that we still have part of our zeitgeist, it's amazing. And some of my favorite books are Victorian books. They're the best. So if you don't like Victorian books, I just read Jane Eyre. Like, just go to Jane Eyre and just like see if you like it. And then you don't have to do it again. You don't have to read nothing else. Just try that and just see if you like it, because they were all about the drama. Like, it just is such good stories. So the Victorians are piping hot. The Victorians are, you can't touch them, they are so hot. And that's on the Brontes, okay? W is for Western. I talked in a recent video about how I am getting slowly attracted to Western books, so I'm gonna say they're hot. I can't say that I've read too many, it just seems that I am very attracted to reading books in the future that are Westerns, like True Grit, The Oxbow Incident, The Big Rock Candy Mountain. Like, there's books that I'm like, like, that seems very interesting to me. The things of Westerns that I have read, I just seem to really like them. I think they, again, are just of a very specific time and of are very specific stories about, usually about how men are handling things, and always have a little bit of adventure, but there's always a darkness to them as well that I just find interesting. So I think Westerns are hot. Let's give it to them. Westerns are hot. And I don't mean John Wayne Westerns, because I don't watch those movies. I don't like John Wayne. So, not that guy. But everything else. True Grit with Jeff Bridges. That can stay. X is X-rated. I can't say that I've really read anything that I would consider X-rated. I don't really have much experience with this genre, considering the books I read are Victorian, and they're like, he touched my hand and I gave a gasp, and that's as sensual as it gets. Can't say that I'm very into X-rated books just because I don't read them. Not that they're not hot. I'm sure for their own reasons they are hot. 50 Shades of Grey at least sold millions for a very specific reason. They're probably hot. For me, they're just not hot. I'm not really looking for smut. If smut's in there, cool, I'll read it. I'm not gonna be like, ugh. If it's there, totally there. But I am not on Spicy Talk. I'm not on Spicy Tube. I'm not looking necessarily for spice. If it's there, I'll take it. But it's not something I'm necessarily attracted to reading. Movies, if movies have it, again, I'm not looking for like, where's the best sex scene? I'm mostly just looking for a good story. And if it's got sex in there, it's in there, just like life. So that one's hot for reasons, I'm sure, but for reading for me, it's not super hot. Why is young adult? This is probably going to be my most controversial take, because people on social media with books, and just people in general, love young adult fiction. They love it. I don't. I'm gonna say it. I don't. Even when I was younger and I was the perfect target audience for young adult, I was never super attracted to it. With exceptions. There were exceptions. John Green's books, when I was younger, I loved. Looking for Alaska, Fault in Our Stars, was obsessed. Perks of Being Wallflowers considered young adult, and I loved that book when I read it in high school. There are and just like anything I've been saying throughout this video, just because I'm not necessarily attracted to it up front, doesn't mean I completely turn myself off from it and go, ugh, I won't have that because it's that genre. If someone gives me the recommendation, they're like, no, you will really like this and it's good, I go, sure, I'll take it. One of my best friends in high school gave me Looking for Alaska, and she said, you must read this, you'll really like it. And I went, you are correct. So I'm open to it. It's just not something I'm attracted to. Again, I read the plots and I'm just like, no, I'm not interested in them at all. And often people who I know will read young adult books then come back and are like, this felt really young, or this wasn't good. And I'm kind of like, well, it was marketed for people under the age of 22, you know, like, and not that that is any count against them at all. I'm just saying, like, this is technically for a younger audience. And it's just stories that just for me, they've just never resonated with me or stuck out to me. So I don't really, you're not going to see much young adult on this channel. If it's one, again, that I've been told I should read and is an important one, then yes, I will absolutely read it and give it a go, but I don't seek it out. It's not something that I'm going to come in a book haul with like all the new young adult. That's just, and I'm not someone who's going to do that just for views. It's just not me. So, young adult, I'm going to say it, it's not hot. And the last is Z, and Z is for, which is a word I already used, Z is for zeitgeist, which means it's a book that encapsulates like the spirit and the mood at the time, which is different from kitsch. I guess is very different from kitsch. Kitsch being more like playing into popularity and playing into something that's very accessible, whereas zeitgeist is more about like capturing a mood at the time. And I can think of so many like post-war books that definitely would be considered zeitgeist, like I'm sure a lot of Ernest Hemingway is kind of considered zeitgeist. The Sun Also Rises being like, oh, we're talking about the lost generation and how people after World War I felt so lost, and do you mind? I would imagine that kind of falls under zeitgeist. And I'd say as long as it's done in a thoughtful way and it isn't just trying to like do it just because everybody's doing it. If they're doing it in a thoughtful, very well-written way, I say that that's hot. I think that's cool. I think we're gonna see a lot of books coming out, not maybe like right away, right now, but in the next couple of years, about what it felt like to be in the pandemic. What was June 2020 feeling like? Because it was such a mood and a time and very specific to the world events that were happening, that what were people feeling? How would characters be moving throughout this time? And how does that encapsulate what that time felt like? That then our children will read that and be like, wow, that was kind of a weird time because I read this book about it and this novel about it. Mom, is that really what it felt like? And I'll be like, oh, you mean me eating chocolate in my room at 2 p.m. because I didn't have a job and I didn't have anything to do? Yeah. And feeling like I was losing my mind? Yeah, that is what it felt like, actually. So I think these novels are important. I think they are. As long as, again, they're done thoughtfully with real thought behind them, real care and attention behind them, and they're really trying to get the full experience in that book, I think it's really good. So, zeitgeist. Zeitgeist is hot. I will say it's hot. even though maybe I'm not fully grasping what it means. I think it's hot. But yeah, that's the book tag. A to Z bookish things, and if I thought they were hot or not. And you can decide in the comments whether I'm right or I'm wrong. Please let me know. These sort of things, do you find them hot? Do you find them not? Totally up to you. These are obviously just opinions. These are my own opinions. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to do anything with this other than watch it and keep moving on. But I just wanted to share it. I thought it was a fun time. I saw my neighbor come out and he saw me filming and it was very uncomfortable. But yeah, Eloise says thank you. Eloise says thank you so much because she's so polite. But anyway, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You can like, comment, subscribe, share, do what you want to do. And I will be here again soon and I'll be talking about books. Thank you.